Mercedes has unveiled the W15 to the world, but it seems like the team's choice of a new design and direction did not come without its own consequences. Although the similarity with the RB19 provided a lot of hope that the Silver Arrows will be highly competitive in 2024, it seems like Allison's statement has brought some worries about whether or not we're going to see this scenario. With Hamilton entering his last season at Mercedes as well, could this spell trouble for Mercedes' potential last championship shot with Hamilton? One of the most obvious things to look at about the W15 was the brand new design and philosophy. And this time the car does indeed look fast and mighty. However, Allison has spoken about how chasing this new philosophy and design affected other aspects of the development path, mostly because the team didn't have enough resources and time to look into them properly. Elaborating on it further, the technical director of Mercedes said, "A new chassis and gearbox was standard for each year, pre-budget cap. The latter usually forces you to choose, but there are teams like us that have opted to change both. There's no doubt that having a new outer casing of a gearbox and at the same time having a new chassis are two big projects that take up a part of our financial means. This means that in other parts of the car we have not pushed as much development." Now, this does have some serious potential to spell trouble for Mercedes, mostly because they've focused on a lot of parts they found extremely important to bring stability to the car. Yes, the chassis and the gearbox do play a huge role in the aerodynamics of the car, especially considering the fact that they allow you to not have structural limits in order to bring upgrades to the car. The primary issue that the W13 and the W14 had with their chassis, the gearbox, when more compacted, allows the team to build a proper design around it, which was yet again one of the most important issues that Mercedes had when it came to the controversial zero pod design and philosophy of their cars. This might mean that the team didn't put that much money into developing some very important parts of the car, such as the Venturi channels, as well as the diffuser efficiency, for example. But having seen the car from first sight, the front wing as well as the revamped nose did give us a lot to think about, and it does seem like Mercedes knows what they're doing. It's just the fact that they didn't have enough money and resources to allocate to these aspects, because they were dealing with one massive issue that overhauled all the other ones: the car's stability. The rear end bouncing a lot and being unpredictable in the corners did not allow both Hamilton or Russell to push it to its limits, and that is why they were forced to ride with higher cars and lose a lot of downforce. That's why Allison pointed out that the most important thing to be solved on the W15 is for it to be stable and predictable, but that doesn't necessarily make it a championship-winning car on its own. We've also seen Ferrari having a stable car in 2023, and in 2022 the Maranello team was labelled as the porpoising geniuses. It was still far from enough to challenge Red Bull, who set precedents and standards in every field possible. Now, the fact that Red Bull did borrow an idea originally implemented from the Mercedes and McLaren team, which is the bulbous cover of the engine, does give us a lot of hope that the Silver Arrows have learned a thing or two about proper aerodynamics and airflow with Allison back on the helm. So, whether or not this will translate into pure performance, time will tell. As of now, the goal is clear. Have a car that you can trust and a car that will be much stabler entering the corners or hitting the brakes before doing so. One that won't feel like you're sitting on the front of the tyres, as Hamilton explained. And one that will have a much stronger rear end. Adding to this matter even further, Allison highlighted the main parts that the W15 had reworked apart from its obvious weakness in its stability. Elaborating, great attention was paid to improving the unpredictable rear axle of the previous car. We've worked on this to try and create a car that is easier for the drivers. At the start of a corner, when you're hard on the brakes and cornering, the rear end needs to be solid. And when you approach the apex, the car should feel progressively more agile and eager to turn. We tried to do this in the new car. We've also worked hard to create a car with less drag and more cornering performance. We also made some improvements to areas where we had room for improvement, including DRS and pit stop performance. But even here, Allison made sure to remind the fans about the most important thing that his team had to pay attention to: the relationship between the cost and the opportunity of what they were going to gain for the amount of money they were going to spend in a certain sector. This is again extremely important, because if the team believes that certain areas are going to be a waste to be worked on if the car has a spiteful rear end, then it's only logical for Allison and his engineers to put their minds and the Mercedes money into making this happen as a solid basis to work on. This goes to show that the budget cap is working wonders, because if we didn't have it right now, Mercedes would be able to spend $300 to $400 million in order to build a car that they would see fit to compete with the RB20. And this would be followed by teams like Ferrari and McLaren. So the lower bracket teams would have zero to no chance of competing at the top of the grid whatsoever. Even Toto Wolff said that the car had a complete relaunch, although most of the comments on social media believe that the car looks very similar to the W14. But adopting the pushrod rear axle, something we've been able to understand even before the Silver Arrows introduced the car from their customer team Aston Martin, is yet again a very important change that points towards the fact that Mercedes are here to play the ultimate game, and they'll not stop at obstacles. Adding to this matter, Wolff said, "The car is very different, not only on the aerodynamic surfaces but mainly underneath. There are many mechanical changes. We hope it will transfer into more predictability and a car that the drivers can really push. The most important thing is that you look inward. What did we get wrong? Why did the virtual world not correlate with the real world in the past?" And we found some clues and tried to eliminate some variables. We know it's difficult and a big mountain to climb because if a team is far ahead, like Red Bull was last year, it's not easy. But we have a superb driver combination. Hopefully a fast car, and I think there are some very good ingredients to be back at the front again. The most important thing obviously is what Hamilton feels about the W15, because it is his last season with the Silver Arrows, and the fact that he left the team before testing the car in the work simulator, which was confirmed by Wolff, has left some questions about whether or not Hamilton knew something that we didn't regarding the development of the car. To put even more pressure on the 7-time world champion, Mercedes is very likely going to hide data and upgrades from him in the second half of the season, because they would be smart to not give their fiercest rivals a head advantage in the name of the friendship of Hamilton and Wolff, which could create some drama if Russell emerges as the favourite driver in Mercedes. The Brit opened up about the 2024 season and his expectations, and although he admitted that he feels that they are on the right track, based on his statement, the car is still not ready for a championship fight, adding, "The learnings of the past 2 years have helped us find our direction. It's enabled us to find our North Star. It's still going to be a work in progress, but we will face whatever challenges present themselves with our heads up, with open minds, and work through diligently. If you're not comfortable with the car, you're not able to extract the maximum performance. A more stable, more predictable car will enable us to extract the potential from not only the car, but ourselves as drivers." Be that as it may, the car is very likely to present itself as a challenge yet again, maybe in a much smaller form compared to the previous years, if Mercedes has fixed the stability of its rear end. Making sure that one major problem is fixed is definitely the North Star for the team, but it's far from making it championship-winning material. And if all of the works implemented on the car seem to be working their wonders, Mercedes will very likely wait for the second half of the season to introduce competitive upgrades that would also translate into the 2025 season. This would definitely force Mercedes to look into their remaining driver in Russell as the leader, and maybe the wisest thing would be to invest a lot in him in the upcoming season in order to provide him with all the tools he needs to compete for the championship in 2025. That is, if the Silver Arrows are unable to do so in the following period. With this in mind, do you think that Mercedes has what it takes to challenge the RB20 after Allison's statement about making sacrifices in different areas due to the unstable rear end? Let us know in the comments below, and after you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.